Hey everyone, Bittersteel here, back with another video. Today we'll be looking at Guangxi Clique and Battlecry specifically, so let's go. With the new supply mechanics, China has gotten a little more difficult, so I figured let's update our existing guide. It shouldn't be too hard. Iron Man mode on, historical AI focuses on, let's go. First off, let's just organize our army. I like to pick all the units that have some experience, split them off, that makes 6. Put them along the coast here, give them an order so they can start building some planning. 3 remaining units will park at Haiku. The majority of this guide will focus on using border skirmishes to eat the nationalists and the other warlords, and for that purpose we will be using these 6 units. We will upgrade this template into something a little more robust than this, and we'll use the other units for our war with Japan, but we still have a lot of time before we need to worry about that. As for research, I like to open by getting better guns and getting artillery. Artillery is very important. As for the guns, you could postpone this and get yourself basic machine tools first. Choice is yours. I just like to have the good guns early, and then we'll just build a few civilian factories. 4 should be enough. After those 4 are built, we can start working on military factories and, very importantly, working on our supply network. What I like to do is start by plugging in our main capital hub with the other hubs in the region, just so we can make sure our railway network is all connected. As you can see, China has a lot of hubs. Some of them aren't connected. Most of them will not be connected to your network, so make sure to always check when you're taking land that everything you conquer is plugged into railway network, especially here along the coast. Most of these supply depots are not connected by railway, meaning they will try to get supply via convoy, and that's just absolutely terrible. The Japanese Navy will sink all those convoys. So railways are king. Now for production, we'll use the free production efficiency. Just put 3 factories on basic infantry equipment at the start. Focus is secure internal politics, and let's go. Also take all of your infantry and exercise them until they're at least level 3. Now our focus path is pretty straightforward. We'll start off by going from secure internal politics all the way down here to border clashes with the nationalists. So we'll go politics, opposition, war taxes, personal leadership, and then border clashes. With our first focus done, we will have a bunch of political power to spend. One of the first things I like to pick is go for chief of the army and appoint Huang Shaohong, an army offense expert. This will be very beneficial for the border clashes we will be fighting. He's better than a defense expert, and most importantly, this gets our army experience taking early. We will need army experience to change our templates because our current template is just straight up garbage. So yes, I am skipping improving my economy for a bit until I get some army experience going and have a few competent templates I can use moving forward. We now have 5 army experience. I'm gonna take the basic template we have, add 1 infantry unit to it. This brings them up to 10 combat width. These units will be decent enough for garrisons, maybe even port garrisons if we can add some engineers to them later and deploy a couple of them. First though, we will split off a different unit to conserve a little bit of political power, and we'll start building our shock troops. So our shock troop template will be identical to the first one until we can alter it. Just set it to elite, making sure they get all their equipment first. So the goal will be something like 9 infantry battalions with support artillery and 4 artillery battalions. That gives you a 30 combat width division with a lot of soft attack, making it very good to fight enemy infantry. The Chinese infantry only has basic infantry in it, and they will be more than enough to fight the Japanese as well. The main enemy you will face in China will be supply though, so we'll have to fix that. And our second batch of 100 political power can now be spent. We'll go into military high command and we'll do army regrouping. It's not incredibly valuable for the combat itself, but again, army experience, the more you get, the better. If you can get it early on, we can actually build some good divisions by the time we need to fight Japan. Meanwhile, keep working towards border clashes. Just skip cross-border raids for now. All right, we have our towed artillery done. What I'm going to do now is dedicate 1 slot to industry. 1 slot will be dedicated to keeping your artillery up to date, and then 1 slot, once we unlock the 3rd one, will be focused on getting weapons and infantry equipment up to date. I'm actually going to wait until they get the 3rd slot and use that on artillery, since most of our units are straight up infantry for now. A few things that we do need to get along the way are trucks. We need trucks for supply. We also need trains, which reminds me I should probably switch one thing out for trains. So basic machine tools and civilian trains. We need to make trains because we don't actually have any right now. Things you want to pick up when you have the extra research time will be anti-air, very valuable when fighting Japan. You're going to want to pick up support equipment and stuff like engineers and logistics companies, because China is really terrible when it comes to supply. supply. And of course, air. We will need air fighters. CAS, extremely important, but those can wait for now. CAS, very valuable when going up against Japan. Fighters are going to be vital if we are ever going to land in Japan. We'll not build a navy to get there, so we will need to paradrop, and to paradrop, we need air superiority. Now, as for our production, we'll build the new guns, take it down to 1 factory. We lost our free production efficiency anyway, and put 2 factories on towed artillery so we can start making some glorious big boomers. And just keep improving your shock trooper template. Start by adding some support artillery with your first 10 army experience. Personal leadership is done. We're on to border clashes with the nationalists. Now a few notes about border conflicts. It's pretty important to know this. A border conflict can be triggered in any province that borders an enemy province where you have troops in. So we want to be selective and only have troops in our provinces that border enemy provinces that we want to take. In this case, we have troops only in Guangdong, meaning we border Hunan, Jiangxi, and Fujian. Our goal is to take as much of the Chinese coastline. 1, to prevent Japanese naval landings, ironically giving China an easier time that way. And 2, this is where most of the factories and development are. It will give us the most power creep if we do. Another thing we kind of want is to take some of the Chinese provinces in this region here. Liangshan, Ganzi, Xikang, whatever. Just so that we can start bordering other warlord nations. The reason being is every border skirmish triggers a cooldown, and we want to be able to divert our attention elsewhere while we wait for that cooldown to finish. So we hit China, we get a cooldown with China, we can then hit Yunnan. After Yunnan and China are on cooldown, hopefully we can have a border with Xibei Sanma and go there. Just keep ping-ponging your troops between different targets so that the cooldown is not as much of an issue. There is a bit of RNG involved because like Guangdong here, it borders 3 different provinces. We cannot pick which province we target. It is a bit random, so there will be luck involved getting the provinces right, but it does help if you just keep all of the troops that are not currently required for anything, just keep those away from any province that borders a neighbor. So we can put troops in Nanning and we can put troops in Hainan. These 2 provinces technically don't border anyone else, so as long as the troops are in those provinces, they will not interfere with selection, and we just use our 6 shock troops, put them into position, just narrow down the provinces we want as much as we can. It's going to be hard enough as it is. We're also going to continuously hold on to 100 political power unless we know there's a long cooldown waiting, just because we need 100 political power to start the border clash, and if we win, we get the 100 political power back. That will just reduce the time we need to wait and keep things moving forward if we can always keep clicking the button. Also, the reason why I've got 6 units here is because 6 units is the maximum amount of units that can be selected for a border skirmish. So if you can always pick the 6 units that are going to get involved, we can make those 6 units god tier for border skirmishes, meaning high soft attack. So far, the template isn't much to look at, but it's getting there. We're getting the army experience, and we just need to keep producing guns and artillery. All right, border clashes with the nationalist is done. We can now click this button to stage an incident. This will start a 30-day timer. We're going to do that. And like I said, the province selected is going to be random. It might even change the moment you click this button. So right now it is on Jiangxi. I click the button. It has just flipped to Fujian. So that's in our favor, but I have no way to influence that other than positioning my troops as best I can. We have 30 days now. So ideally you want to stop training, but I think I can wait a little bit more just so that our troops have organization. You don't want to start a border clash with low org because you will lose. Now with that done, we are going to move on to institute cross-border raids. I may have waited a little bit long because I was talking, so I may have wasted a few days, but that's not game breaking. And the event is ready. Now what we click the button, a border skirmish will start up and troops will funnel in. You should see the first one might take a while because your divisions aren't so yeah, we instantly lost the first one because our troops didn't actually get into the battle somehow. That's not good. So I'm gonna replay up until this point. I'll get back to you. Okay, so we are back, and this time we actually got troops into the battle, so it will not automatically stop. I have no idea why that happened. If that happens to in your first border skirmish, just restart. It's not worth it. Okay, so our troops should be starting to blast the nationalists away. It might take a little longer for your first battle, mostly because our divisions are not quite where we want them yet. We may be lacking a little bit of equipment. They're not just at that level of soft attack yet, but the next one should be easier. Don't worry about the red bubble. It should end up eking out in your favor, mostly because the enemy is just deploying straight up pure infantry and you will blast them apart. It just might take a while. And depending on how long that first border skirmish is going to last, it might actually be a better idea of, instead of going for cross-border raids, to take a sidestep into industrial investment, get that first, but it doesn't matter too much on the whole. So yeah, our soft attack is starting to win out. We are starting to slowly get their organization down. We should win this relatively easily. Cross-border raids done, so now when this one finishes, we can do the same thing to Yunnan and the other warlords once we can border them. As for our focuses, what we're going to do next is go into the industrial tree, the little one over here, and take the 4 focuses beneath industrial investment. So get the extra research slot, local arms production, long-term economic planning. Don't bother with the 2 research boosts here, they're not worth it. And then we're going to work our way down to proclaim rival government. We can ignore everything else here. 2 things that are valuable are cult of personality. 10% base stability can be very valuable. It's going to be up to you if you want it or not. It will depend on how quickly Japan is crushing China. And labor reform. The recruitable pop is pointless, but the factory output, ooh, that's a good one. So industrial investment it is. You can see we are just blasting their divisions apart though. So after the initial hump is done, there we go, victory in Fujian. Now move those divisions over to Yunnan and do the same thing. Now we've triggered an internal cooldown with the nationalist China, so we cannot do another border skirmish for a while. That's why we're now switching to the warlords if we can. One downside of this is that it does take quite a bit of political power, so we don't really get out of civilian economy early, but I think getting the extra territory here for free is definitely worth it. And speaking of extra territory, go into your occupied territories and set everything to local police force. This will reduce the amount of garrisons we need. Very important. Don't want to burn equipment for nothing. And it doesn't matter that we don't build a lot of compliance. Once we finish this warlord focus tree, everything will become a Guangxi core anyway, and none of that will matter. It's just a short-term thing. And time to blow up Yunnan. This should be a lot easier. Yunnan doesn't have that many divisions, so keep focusing on trying to take the Chinese coastal provinces and take the Chinese provinces that can link you up to Shibei-Sanma. Now, as for your army XP, you're not only going to be building up your infantry, we're also going to take a step into the army command if you have no step back, spirit of the army, and pick professional army corps. This is just a flat-out boost to your army experience gain, plus cheaper land doctrine, what's not to like. And now we do have a bit of political power stockpiled, and we are on a cooldown with both Yunnan and nationalist China. It's finally time to work on our industry. What I like to do first is go up to free trade. We have a ton of resources we're not using, so giving those away will give us a lot of extra civilian factories, and of course the flat bonuses from being on free trade. I think it's worth that over going to partial mobilization. That's just my feeling. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Now, every time we take territory, take a look here. Do we need to build additional railways to hook up our new supply network? If you see any unconnected railway hubs, make sure to plug them into the network. Yep, Chinese United Front is forming, so Japan will be coming for our brothers any day now, and we will need to keep an eye on how that goes. Mostly because we are significantly weakening China and the Chinese United Front from the rear, so we don't want Japan to have an easy win here. We want to take as much of China and the warlords as possible, but at some point we will need to be ready to take on Japan. If you're feeling confident and if you've gotten a bit lucky with your border skirmishes, you can be a huge Guangxi Clique by the time Japan ends up winning, and with little preparation and build up, you should be able to push them off the continent. I will not say relatively easily, but you will fight for it. What is ideal though is if you can take the Chinese coastline and push up to the provinces of Hubei and Xi'an. If you can take Hubei, Xi'an, and then the coastal provinces linking those up, you can effectively isolate nationalist China from the Japanese advance. And as long as China holds on to Sichuan and Chongqing here, they will not capitulate, and that war will continue without any progress. To the north here, they will most likely take Shaanxi and maybe even the communists, but if you can hook up to Shibei-Sanma, you can start eating those warlords from the rear and block off the Japanese advance as well. So there is going to be a little bit of luck involved, but it is what it is. It's pretty unfortunate the way that works. Now we have research trains. I'm going to move them into my production queue. The first extra factory I get, I'm going to put on trains. And after that, we'll just keep building up our infantry equipment and our artillery. More fancy stuff can be added later. Trucks will be valuable though, so don't forget to research those. And there goes Japan. All right, next incident. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be the Huizhou border instead of Liangshan, so we'll see if it happens to be correct. Ah, no, it flipped to Liangshan, so that will give us borders with a Ma. Very nice. Again, there is a luck involved here, so I wish I had a better option for you. There's no way to influence this other than what we're already doing and limiting the amount of troops that can border the enemy. Sadly, it is what it is, and what it is pretty bad. All right, let's stage the incident, blow up those Chinese units, look at them melt. Just bam, blown to bits. And we can immediately do the same to our neighbors. Now the territory up here is all awful. There are very few, if any, supply hubs in the region. That there are none, so we will have to build one eventually, and it does make the border skirmishes a little more difficult. Mostly because your organization is going to be terrible, meaning if the enemy puts up meaningful resistance, it is going to be hard to win this one. Mostly because, like I said, you don't have organization. So as we push further into Shibei-Sanma, we will need to build a supply hub there and plug that into our railway network, but we're not quite at that point yet. It's just something that's nice to know. We're still more than capable of... Oh, for God's sake. Again, I'll need to see if I can save scum this. Sometimes the reinforcement doesn't work properly and you get instantly defeated. So let's see if I can cheese it and get back to this point. Okay, so we're back at the point 2 days before the event. If you're wondering how I do that, I simply go into my task manager, go into processes and close HoI4 there. Not into the programs, but into the processes. And then you should be able to load up a sort of autosave, and hopefully that was in the right place. Otherwise, you may end up needing to restart. It's not a huge thing if you lose one border skirmish. It's just really annoying to lose it in this way. It just feels unfair. I think a good way to prevent that from happening as well is just get radio early. It will definitely boost your reinforce rate. It's just terrible that not even your first unit gets into combat on time. So let's try that again. There we go. We got a unit in, so we can get this over with. Yeah, we should be able to really obliterate Shibei-Sanma's troops here, even with our low org due to a low supply. There we go. Victory in Gannan. Move the troops back and deal with the final remnants of Yunnan. One sad thing about annexing a warlord or nationalist China like this is you don't actually get any of their stuff, so none of their guns, none of their equipment, but you do get their land, so there is that. We're a pretty nice Guangxi already, just eating the enemy from behind. Now, like I said, this does weaken China significantly, not just because you're taking the land, but also because they are devoting quite a few divisions to guarding the border, which means those divisions are not fighting the Japanese. It does end up going quite badly for China. We've got another nice batch of political power. We'll have 100 left after we take a pick, so we're going to move up to partial mobilization. Our industry is starting to come together. It's not perfect, but hey, gotta work with what you have. And once we core all this land, we'll have a lot more factories as well. Plus, our name will not look as ridiculous when we take a little more land. Uh-oh, Japan suddenly made a very big breakthrough. Also, never pick seek Japanese support. This is pointless. Literally pointless. All right, next incident with China. Hopefully, we can take a coastal province. It looks like it's going to be Jiangxi. Click the button, and yes, it's Zhejiang. There we go. More land. Back to military high command. Keep rounding that out. Good picks are the armor experts. No, will not build a single tank, but he does give us, once again, free army experience. And after that, we can look at a military theorist, because we will need to work on our land doctrines. Other good picks are designers, material designer or an aircraft designer, maybe even an industrial concern. And political advisors, nothing really good in here just yet, but we will have some good options later on. We've also finished our shock crew template, so 30 width like this is what I like to roll with. You could go with 27 width as well, or even 24 width. And if you just want a budget option, 21 width works, but it's not the best. This is what we'll be using as our regular frontline units, while our heavy hitters here, the 30 width infantry, is going to be our shock troops to really break the enemy line. I'm going to build a supply hub up here. I know they're super expensive, I know, and then I'll plug them into our railway network as best we can, like so. Make that our highest priority, getting those two done, and we'll click this button, reorganize the railway system, so at least it should be built in a reasonable time. And there goes Shaanxi. Unfortunate. Meanwhile, I have updated our regular line infantry to use the 21 combat with unit, so this is going to be nice to fight the Japanese with. Started recruiting a couple of these. I don't have enough guns and artillery. Should also probably start researching support equipment so I can get some engineers in. Army doctrine. Couple of good options here. If you want to play a defensive game against Japan and you're not very confident in your unit's abilities, Grand Battle Plan works very nice, gives you good planning bonus and some supply consumption reduction. I think it's an infiltration. Yes, infiltration assault, supply consumption. Very, very good in China. Or if you just want your infantry to go ham and blast away at the Japanese, superior firepower, still my favorite. Mass assault works, but I really don't like it as much. I prefer to just go with superior firepower. Shibei-sanma didn't even show up to this fight. Ironically, that makes it take longer. Ah, there we go. Come on, get in there so I can blow you up. There we go, Gansu. And with our focus tree done, we now have access to regular China's focus tree. Couple of good things here. I'm not going to tell you exactly what focuses to pick because there are so many, you can pretty much do what you want. A few things to take into account is you want to be friendly with the British and or the Americans because they have a lot of bonuses to fighters here. We're going to need good fighters to take on Japan, especially to para-drop. It's going to be a lot easier than building a navy. Financial policy here unlocks a very good political advisor. 5% consumer goods is huge. Also the Academica Sinica, more research slots, always great. And Executive Juan here, more daily political power gain that will allow you to do more border skirmishes and build out your cabinet faster. Personally, I am going to rush for the extra research slot, get the financial policy, and then go for Executive Juan, and then we'll evaluate where we are. All right, time to make the communists disappear. Now, hopefully this works out because we do have very low organization due to the terrible supply situation. Gonna get engineers next, and don't forget to start producing some very valuable support equipment. We won. Okay, so that's fixed, and now we move troops up to Ordos. It does look like the Japanese have managed to push past the river defense line, so we're gonna want to work on separating the Chinese from the Japanese. Hopefully we can take Xi'an and Hubei, though no guarantees there. We just need to take as much land as we can before things spiral out of control. If it's looking like Japan is just completely annihilating China, you could try to manually go to war with China and join Japan's faction. It's not the worst idea. It might end up going very well for you. What you could also do is instead go through 3 principles and all the way down here to pick a fight with Japan. But if you're gonna fight Japan, make sure your army's ready. Mine isn't anywhere near ready. Hey, we took Xi'an right under Japanese nose. So getting a little anxious, anxiety setting in here. Okay, so now border Xinjiang. I could start eating them, but I'm gonna swing some troops up north here and try to take the province of Suiwan. If I can take that province, I would have the Japanese cut off from Xinjiang, Shibei-sanma. I have a nice continuous border there. I would just need to take Hubei if I can manage, and that would secure China, and I can build up to face Japan at my own pace whenever I want to. Speaking of building up, we are about to finish our first infantry army. Gonna start queuing up a second one. It does require a lot of guns and artillery mostly, so it's gonna be very important to build up your industry. Shaanxi lost control of Suiwan. It's now Japanese, so I won't be able to border war it either way. Unfortunate. Oh well, I'll just go eat Xinjiang then. I have gone and unlocked, where is he? Hivi Sung, financial expert. Very nice. 5% consumer goods reduction is a good boost to your industry. I'm gonna try and stage an incident in Hubei. We only control, well, China only controls this one tile that borders us, so it's gonna be pretty hit and miss if we can actually do that. It's most likely gonna be Yangshi. Not great, but okay, so it says Yangshi. What happens when I click? Oh, it became Hubei. So as long as they can hold on to that tile for another 30 days, I should be able to take Hubei, and that effectively cuts off the nationalists from Japan entirely, and I can build up my army at my own pace. I can keep eating Shibei-sanma and Xinjiang and just get my troops ready to deal with Japan. Organization's a little low, but that's just a supply issue, and we have victory, and we now have China completely isolated from Japan. All we need to do is do some damage control up north here so they don't snake their way into Xinjiang and the rest of Shibei-sanma, and this war will not progress, and we can casually build up. China's nowhere near at risk of being capitulated, and they cannot be capitulated at this point, which is very nice. Also gonna start working our foreign investors. filters now that China is not at risk of capitulating. We have all the time in the world. So we're going to work on our relations with the British and or Americans. You can choose how you want to do this. The important thing is we want to get fighter purchases, Camco, and all the bonuses to fighters here, really. Burma Road's not bad either. 2 off-map civilian factories. Sorry, military factories are pretty cool. So make sure the British like you. Right now, they don't really like us all that much. I'm also going to start work on fighters. Now, in your game, if you're not lucky enough to cut them off using Xi'an and Hubei, make sure that you are getting your troops ready. Just squeeze out as many infantry divisions as you can. Make them as good as possible. Like, these are definitely worth it. Make sure your railway networks are at least level 2 so you can support those troop numbers and just start squeezing out frontline units. Also, make sure you got some garrisons. They don't have to be these. You can use the frontline units for that as well. But guard your ports. Japan will come at you with a vengeance. I messed it up in Shibe-Sanma. I forgot to use the trick to use force attack. And as you can see, we have virtually no org up here. So that really wasted a lot of political power. And with the industry really ramping up, production should not be a problem. Add some factories where you see huge deficits. And after that, we can start building fighters. I'm not going to build interwar fighters. These are pretty bad. But I am working my way through the Camco and the fighter bonuses. And we will get some good air. We'll get some good air to deal with Japan. All right, time to border conflict Xinjiang. Now, as you can see, I'm not just building an extra supply hub up here in Ordos, because this is all red. I'm also beefing up our existing supply network, getting everything to at least level 2, maybe even level 3, but that is maybe a bit too much. After which I will continue producing military factories, mostly so I can put them into air. So I want CAS and I want fighters. Our army production is more than sufficient. All right, Japan's declared war on the Philippines. I think we're going to start drawing up our battle lines to deal with the Japanese threat. I'm going to devote one army to the south here. Might actually just make this my primary goal. Just deal with South Indochina, and the rest of my troops can sit on the massive front line in actual China. And time to pick our aircraft designer. You have to go with Camco first, which is a little annoying. It's a bit of a waste of political power, but you need to pick Camco. And then when you unlock local fighter production, you get a new design company, Camco Fighter Division. I think it upgrades the one you have, but I'm not sure. No, it doesn't. So you need to waste 50 PP on this. But hey, at least the second pick is cheap, right? This is actually a fairly thinly held front line by Japan. I think I could push them pretty easily. Alrighty, let's just justify a war goal, retake a core state, any core state really. 15 days is 15 days. Now let's see if we can deal with Japan. We've got our port guards in position. I just wish we had a little more air, just a little bit more, because this is not the world's greatest air force, but it is something. All right, justification is complete. This is going to be the deciding moment. One downside to this is you will end up at war with the Axis. Overall, that's not a huge problem. They're very far away. You just lose access to Hungary's many millions of tons of aluminum. So that is unfortunate, but you can always trade with Vichy France or the UK or anyone else, really, as long as you can deal with Japan's navy, which we will eventually. This is all very lightly held by divisions that are probably not as good as ours. So I'm going to start off with an offensive and really aggressively push. Same for the port here. I am going to aggressively attack, and Indochina. Just everything looks lightly held, and I want to exploit that. Looks like the north here is going very well. It's just the south where Japan seems to be coalescing some resistance. But I think the main concern for us is supply. So we need to take the supply up at Hanoi. And once we do, we will have a clear sailing south. We'll also need to plug it into our railway network though. So be ready to build railways at the drop of a hat. We've already cut off a bunch of Japan's troops up north here. So these are going to get destroyed. And then we'll simply sweep down Indochina, make sure to garrison the ports, and I can dedicate those armies to the north, and we can really go to town on Japan. Now, it does look like Japan has managed to really mostly solidify its front, so I think I'm gonna keep the offensive going for a little bit longer, but I don't think we'll be able to push until we have cleaned up the south. Still, though, we've made good gains. Also working on Fighter 3s in 1941. It's not that far ahead of time, but it's a nice bonus from our focus tree, so. Also looks like Japanese resistance to the south is mostly crushed. They're still funneling troops in, but I think my 12 divisions here should be sufficient. All of my offensives are completely halted by supply. The south is impossible to move in. There's nothing I can do here. We are not even at the limit of our supply. I'm sitting on the supply hub, but I cannot push a single tile, even with air power, even with a little cast. I cannot push this line anymore. This is dragging on. So you want to finish this up as quickly as possible. Free these troops up so you can do offensives with them. They're very effective. Or just keep eating other Chinas. Other Chinas have equipment. No, not equipment. They have factories you desperately need. Now, just gotta take Saigon. If I can do that, I should have them mostly cut off from supply. I think they just have this port here. Oh yeah, it's over now. We've got all the supply here. Oh god. Yeah, we're just sweeping Japan aside. They must be super distracted again. Like, the AI, their movements never really make any sense. They just move troops around randomly, it seems. That's fine by me. I'll accept anything I can get. It's been difficult enough fighting in this horrible terrain. Indochina is ours. There's just the matter of I will not be able to withdraw my troops because that will give Siam free reign in the area. I don't want that. I would need additional units, and I am all out of equipment again. Our offensive to the north, however, has gone and is going very well, so there is that. Now, as we're pushing further and further, we are about to hit the big supply bottleneck. We definitely want to push Taijin and Beijing. Do not give the enemy any opportunities to dig in here behind this river. We want to hit them and keep hitting them so we can push across here. This is where the supply hubs for the region are. We need this. If we allow Japan to dig in, it's gonna be difficult pushing past. I am somewhat afraid that the Siamese are going to declare war on us, and I don't have the troops to cover all those borders. Fortunately, we were able to push across the river, so we've taken Beijing and Taijin. Yeah, I'm just gonna move one of the armies away from northern China, park them on the Siamese border, just so they don't get any funny ideas. Alright, time for another all-out push. Let's see if we can get ourselves some Manchurian land. And we are doing significant damage to the Japanese, though. I don't think they can stop us if we keep this offensive rolling. Oh, the road to Mukden seems to be open. That's a major supply hub for the region. I think that connects all of the Japanese railways there. So if I can get there before they get defenders into position. Ah, yes, that will give us a good amount of supply. And most importantly, deny it to the Japanese. Slowly but surely, we are decimating the Japanese forces on the mainland. I thought I had port guards in position. I thought wrong, and I've just been naval invaded quite severely. I'm gonna halt the northern offensive. I'm going to need to redirect troops, possibly a whole lot of troops, to that naval invasion. I'm afraid to pull these troops off Siam's border because Japan has an entire army there as well. My shock troops are busy trying to clean this up. This is bad, but I think we've got it contained. It's all getting contained, and we're good to go. Yeah, they're gonna get crushed. Yep. Good thing I did, though. I'll divert the shock troops south then to try and help crush this. And good thing I had that army in position. I'll direct the air over there as well, and they can help clean this up. And to the north, we can keep the offensive going. Japan is too distracted to really put up much of a fight. Help? This is a lot of divisions they're pouring in here, and I can't retake the port. Can't push. Can't really do anything. Meanwhile, we have China taking back. Oh, this is just such a horrible situation. Well, at least we managed to retake the port this time. If I could just hold it until they run out of steam. Try to counterattack, build up, then crush them. Then I'll deal with the remains of China before I invade Japan. Meanwhile, just keep building up more air and replenishing our stockpiles. Also start producing some transports. We'll need transports, and we will need paratroopers, so I need to research paratroopers as well. Why does the AI get to ignore supply mechanics? Why? It's not fair. Oh, finally the pocket's getting crushed, and I think we're done. We have completely taken care of the mainland. Japan is pushed back to whatever it has in the Pacific. They're still going ham, though. At this point, all we want to do is eat what's left of the warlords and China itself and build up for a power drop. What do I need to build up? Fighters, 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 fighters. We need enough fighters to achieve air superiority over Korea. The Sea of Japan Japan and whatever area of Japan you want to paradrop. Now, it is a lot more difficult these days to paradrop Japan, mostly because the AI actually guards its ports now, so we'll need to be clever about our paradrops. It doesn't make any sense that it's this impossibly difficult to take out what's left of Japan here. They don't have any victory points left. They don't have any infrastructure. They're sitting in the jungle, and yet they are still not losing org, and some of their divisions aren't even taking attrition. I like to go with 20 combat with paratroopers if I need them to actually be competent, and just add the usual support artillery, maybe some engineers if you want them to dig in. You don't need to support anti-air. They're supposed to have air superiority by the time they drop, and maybe some logistics, and then just train as many of these as you can, or convert some of your existing units into the template. Well, I'm gonna be glad when this stain here is wiped out. So Central Siam, not a place you want to be fighting, and our upgraded fighters are doing the Lord's work. Just look at the casualty differences. Yeah, I just need my paratroopers to be produced now, and we can overrun them. Let's start with securing Taiwan, and we might be able to island hop our way to Japan itself, just so we control the area by the time the Americans arrive, which they will. They're already in Iwo Jima. Let's see if we can just take Taiwan and move the paratroopers up. Seems easy enough. So Taiwan is secured. Just gotta mop up this last pocket of resistance. China itself is still being consumed. Should be easy enough to eat the rest of these guys. All right, the invasion is happening. Unfortunately, it does seem like some of these tiles are protected. Fortunately, not all of them are. So, oh god. Harrow drops not successful. Yeah, Japan has done that thing, what they sometimes do, where they literally put units on every coastal tile they have. So they have, what, about 150 divisions probably? And my guess is they're all at home. I've managed to take advantage of the fact that this unit was attacking me, lost its organization, and then I immediately counterattacked. If I can take the port, I can just ship in an army of 24 units. Meanwhile, I've got my air over this place, just bombing them into oblivion. I'll also put up my transport planes and put in some air supply. Okay, we've got the port. Now send in the closest infantry army. And now the infantry has arrived as well, and we can start pushing. I have to say, the AI is a lot more capable of defending itself in the most recent update, so it is nice to see. It makes things a lot more challenging. And with our air power, we can just push at will. Our CAS is destroying them. Our fighters have total domination. Japan is gone at this point. They are completely spent. Of course, be mindful of being naval invaded to the rear. Like Japan likes to invade the ports you've taken from them. If you're not careful, they will cut your supply lines, resulting in your army in Japan not having supply, and it will take several days to get the railways operational again. So for a couple of days, you will be in quite the pickle if you're not defending your ports. I've just finished my sentence, and Japan's naval invaded Hiroshima. Don't want my army getting entirely circled and destroyed, but I think we've got it. Yeah, that's a good amount of Japanese we'll destroy. Oh boy, that's 28 Japanese divisions encircled, and they're gone. Yeah, I think that was the Japanese army, so let's just get on with it and knock Japan out. Yeah, I think that was just the last vestiges of the Japanese defense force. Let's see what they have left, actually. Still a couple of divisions, but they're probably in the islands here somewhere. So Japan should pretty much be out of this, and we'll have a very, very good peace deal. Or at least we should have a very good peace deal. And there goes Japan. Now, it's very important that we take a look at the war score. We are miles ahead of everybody else, so we want to use this to take Japan's course. Most importantly, not just the home islands, but also the islands of Okinawa, Iwo Jima, and not the Marcus Islands, but down here, Saipan. Very expensive because the US is occupying them right now. Then we need Taiwan, and now we can just start taking the whole islands. Don't forget about Sakhalin and the Kurils. And I can take the rest of Japan in one go. At least I should be able to. Yes, I still have a little bit left over. So for some reason, don't ask me why, but for some reason, China is involved in this peace deal as a defeated nation. This does not make any sense. They were not at war with anybody else but Japan, and China should be on this side of the list. They're not. I'm going to assume this is a bug. It doesn't matter too much. Take whatever you can during this peace deal. What you have is that's just great. After you've taken the Japanese cores, focus on Manchukuo and Menkukuo. You don't want the allies setting up puppets here. It's annoying if they do. You really don't want that happening. We we've managed to take all of China's stuff for some reason. Thanks, China. We've got all of Japan's cores. The Micronesian islands don't matter. The only one you need is Saipan, so just Japan's core territory. Not just its occupied territory, its actual cores. So make sure you get them. The allies are very keen on setting puppets up everywhere. We've got a little bit of stuff left over, so why not just keep puppeting stuff? All we're gonna do now is set up on the border with Xinjiang, and we're gonna destroy them. We still have a war goal there. They are in the Chinese United Front, so they can't join the allies, and they don't have any guarantees picked up, so we will simply overrun Xinjiang, call it a day, and then we have this achievement in the bag. They don't have any guarantees, they don't have any allies, they're all alone. They're really not a challenge. They got a lot of divisions, but they're all terrible. And there we go, the final peace deal of this run, the final core we need. There we go. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it educational. If you did, leave a like, consider subscribing, and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I upload more content. Now, stick around for this next video. I'm sure you'll love it.